at different altitudes. I believe there used to be a crystalline canopy of super cold ice about 10 miles above the Earth, and that made the pre-flood world very different. Some people call it the canopy theory, and I used to call it that, and I think that's wrong.
It only gets dumber from here.
Solid canopy. It wasn't a vapor canopy. A vapor solid. Okay. But that would block out some of the harmful rays from the sun. So you would still see visible light that would go through this, but some of the harmful effects would be gone. And it could have been held up like an inflatable building. You know, just air pressure inside.
If it was held up by air pressure, then the Earth's atmospheric pressure on the surface would be ridiculously high. Well, a lot of visible light would be blocked out too, so you'd have a pretty dimly lit world with a high atmospheric pressure.
By what's called the Meissner effect. The Meissner effect is where a magnet floats on top of another magnet. I mean, you tried to push two magnets together, you know, the North Poles, and it repels itself. Okay. It's called the Meissner effect. It floats. Japanese float their trains off the tracks just a little tiny bit, so there's no friction or less friction. How fast do those things go? Anybody know? The Japanese trains?
There are two problems. That effect deals with superconductors. The Earth's magnetic field is not a superconducting magnet. It's way too hot to be a superconductor. And how is water ice magnetic?
Let's see. Average temperature of empty space between celestial bodies is calculated at 3 degrees Kelvin, minus 270. Chilly. Minus 450, 448 Fahrenheit.
When you're in direct sunlight, it's 250 degrees Fahrenheit, so your ice canopy firmament thing would boil away.
Under the crust went shooting to the top. And like I tried to mention last night in the debate, the water shooting out along these cracks, the Earth cracked up like an eggshell, and we still have the cracks today. They're called fault lines. The San Andreas Fault, the Hayward Fault, the New Madrid Fault. None of them are my fault, but...
The plates move a few inches a year. There's no reason to think that geysers initiated it or had anything to do with it at all.
From the moon is about 5,000 miles an hour, because it has a lot less gravity. So if the debris was shot off of the Earth during the time of the flood, it would make junk scattered all over space, and rocks and dust and things like that. And that could have, we're probably still running into that stuff as we circle around the sun, like bugs on a windshield. We're hitting our own stuff that left thousands of years ago, floating around in space till we smack into it. And we mentioned this picture last night. I couldn't find it in time.
The energy required for the water from the so-called geysers and the plates to escape Earth's escape velocity would have produced enough energy to sterilize the Earth. Also, asteroids, meteors, meteorites, they're mostly rock. You're saying all those were made by the ice firmament? This is why Kent Hovind isn't taken seriously by Answers in Genesis.